to QI. Tonight, we're leaping our way through language and literature. Lurking in my labyrinth are the loquacious Jack Whitehall, the logomaniac Lloyd Langford, the learned Victoria Corrin-Mitchell, and the long-suffering Alan Davies. So, let's hear your lines. Jack goes.
I wandered lonely as a cloud.
Lloyd goes.
That floats on high o'er vales and hills.
Victoria goes.
When all at once I saw a crowd.
And Alan goes. Oh, dear. Let's start with a nice, easy one. In fact, this one is so easy, I'm going to ask the audience. Have you read 1984? Hands up if you read 1984. Wow, that's pretty good. How many? Yeah. The fact is, research on several occasions show that at least a quarter of the people who claim to have read 1984 are lying. So I'm afraid we have to take points away from you. Yeah. Can you put your hand up if you said you'd read it, but actually secretly you haven't?
Oh, come on.
Come on.
You look very shifty.
Yes. The honest man at the back has earned some more the audience. I have to confess here, I studied English at university. I haven't read it.
I should hope not. What kind of English degree would include something written as late as 1940?
Well, that's true. Yes, we read things written in 1370. But I kind of felt I didn't need to, which is an appalling thing to say.
Oh, it's terribly good, Stephen.
Well, I kind of... I
Look at
know...
all the TV shows named after it.
Two, at least. Room 101 and Big Brother.
Oh, that's Room mine.
Oh, sorry. I know how it opens. It opens with the clock striking 13. I know the character's
Really
called
good,
Winston.
and they made a film of it with John Hurt.
Yeah.
It's hard to bother, isn't it, when there's a great film of a book? I was the same with A Muppet Christmas Carol. I feel it's been done.
Right,
I know what the turkey does in the story. Why read it?
It is a masterpiece of a film, it has to be said.
I lie a lot to impress people. And I'll be honest now, I have never read The Hungry Caterpillar. I get so close to the end, and I get too emotional. I'm like, he's going to die. He's overfed himself. I can't do it, and I stop. So I just pretend that I've read it.
No, he becomes a butterfly.
Is he Kaiser?
Spoiler!
So sorry, that was wrong of me. Oh. I knew someone who gave away the end of Psycho. It's nearly as serious as that.
Oh. There are some books that you don't need to bother reading, like good books that you don't need to bother reading. Like, it's controversial to say it, but I don't think Harry Potter is worth reading. It is so expertly narrated on the audiobook.
You're so right.
But I do, after I listen to the Harry Potter books, with you narrating them, everything in my life is narrated by Stephen Fry. All my thoughts, my internal monologue is now Stephen Fry's voice. Even the dirty thoughts are Stephen's voice. No, because it makes it acceptable. I had a sexual thought the other day, I put my hand in the air, I had a sexual thought about Camilla Parker Bowles. It didn't seem weird because Stephen was saying it to me.
All right, let's go back to Orwell. I'll give you a point if you know his real name, the name he was born under. And
Blair.
Blair is right. You said it first. Yeah? Yeah?
Eric
I was with Eric Arthur Blair.
Very good, Eric Blair. And he wrote, I think, his masterpiece, which I've certainly read many times, which is his allegory, his fable.
Animal Farm.
Animal Farm. And that was published during the war, and that was rather difficult. And do you know the famous poet publisher who turned it down?
No.
Ah. His name is an anagram of toilets.
T.S. Eliot.
T.S. Eliot is the right answer. Yes, he turned it down because he thought it was pro-Trotsky and anti-Stalin, and Stalin, of course, was our great ally in the Second World War. And now, of course, is considered a masterpiece. Well, there we are.
The second best animal-based piece of literature.
The first being...
Hungry Caterpillar.
Oh! What am I thinking of?
I mean...
Now, I should say that there's a bonus hidden in tonight's programme, and that is what we call the Spend a Penny bonus. That's it. There'll be one question at least tonight, whose theme is lavatorial. And if you think that the answer is something to do with the lavatory, then you wave and you spend your penny.
I'm going to keep mine and use it in one of those arcades.
That's a very good idea. Now, here's a lovely list of Victorian slang. What do these L words mean? We've got lollygagging or lollygagging, last shake of the bag, land of Scots, land of cakes, lemon squash party.
I know lollygagging.
Yeah.
That's when you squeeze too hard at the bottom of your calippo.
Oh. Followed by brain freeze.
What if you do that and you squeeze too hard, then it comes right out of the tube, but you can't deal with it all? What do? Do you bite it off?
You lollygag.
Become a learning shabba.
That's a very odd thing to see you do that again.
A leg maniac's one of those people whose leg twitches when they're sitting in a chair.
It would be a good name for them. I used to do that terribly as a teenager, just the endless bouncing.
I've been doing it all show.
It's very hard to stop once you start,
It's
isn't
so hard, and now I'm thinking about it.
No,
I'm not thinking about it. Stephen Fry's thinking about it.
You should roll with it, because Michael Flatley made a living out of that.
I know one of them.
Yes, say.
Land of Cakes is Robert Burns, isn't it?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Scotland.
Talking about Scotland,
Scotland,
yeah.
good. But Land of Scots, you'd think would be Scotland, it isn't. It's actually heaven. Go figure. Learning shopper, you might guess.
Teacher.
Yes, quite right. You know a bit about that?
Yes, can I have a point?
Yes, you certainly can. Lollygagging is very hard to guess, actually. You either know it or you don't, really. It means to flirt, Jack.
Oh, yes.
Flirting.
I did a bit of flirting, didn't I, last time I was on.
You did. You
But I
lollygagged.
decided, because it was very awkward when the show went out, and I had a very long conversation with my father. And I watched
Have you got something to tell me, Jack?
No, I looked very... I look back at it, and to be honest, I looked desperate for your affection. This evening, I've decided to deploy a little bit of carrot and a little bit of stick.
Very good,
Because last time I showed you too much of my carrot.
A very charming carrot it was, too.
Now, here's a problem.
Yeah.
You've just explained that we can wave the little fan if we think it's lavatorial. I'm looking at last shake of the bag and lemon squash party. And I'm thinking, I really hope not.
Lemon squash party looks like something you could put into the internet and find...
Tennis players.
Yes.
Is it a political party?
It's not a political party. It's part of a movement that was very popular in the 19th century, a rather dull movement to many of us, perhaps.
The bag...
It's very straightforward. Temperance. It is an all-male party where only lemon squash was served. It's that simple.
I mean, we've all had a lemon squash party. It's the party that comes after the after party. Last shake of the bag.
That's my favourite.
Is that... Is it like something to do with you, like, your Is it like your last child?
Yes,
child?
your youngest child.
It's the last
shake of the bag. It's a terrific phrase. Meet Benjamin, he's my last shake of the bag. Yes, you've had teacher. Leg maniac is the only one we haven't covered, and it's just really an eccentric dancer, rather frenzied dancer, a leg maniac.
I was right with Flatley, then.
Yes, you were, basically. They're rather pleasing. I'm particularly sorry the last shake of the bag's gone out of the language. Now, without mincing words, what is this? Ah, I have to be rather like us, the family. It's going to come into view. Ah. Ah. Yes. Couldn't be more lavatorial, could it? But you have to answer the question. What is it?
What do you mean, what is it?
Without mincing words, what is it?
Oh, it's going to be a trick one, like, it's a set of weights.
It's a toilet.
No!
Lavatory.
Bomb. Water closet.
We've had lavatory, toilet, water closet, water closet we had.
Water closet.
We had water closet.
A wall-mounted flushable...
Yes, excrement receiver.
Yes.
The point is, there is no word for it that isn't a euphemism, because toilet comes from toile, meaning towel. You know, that's where we
Well,
get
I
our word
always
towel.
wee in a towel, so...
Well, in that case, it's realistic. A lavatory is from lavare, the Latin for to wash, so it's a bit like saying the washroom, which is a very American euphemism that we find silly. A water closet just means a cupboard with water in it, running water.
Although, to be fair, there are all sorts of words for which there's nothing that isn't a euphemism. I mean, kitchen, we don't have a word cookpot place. We're not German.
No, that's right. I mean, all language is metaphorical and, to some extent, hedges around.
Why is that one at the top been, the interior looks like it's been done with one of Noel Edmonds' shirts?
Doesn't it? Exactly like... It's a crinkly bottom one, in every sense. So, there is no actual word for the little boy's room that isn't a you-know-what. What suggestions do you have for the last line of this limerick? There was an old person of Chile whose conduct was painful and silly. He sat on the stairs eating apples and pears.
Firing pips out of his willy.
Very good. I don't think that can be improved upon. It certainly wasn't improved upon by the author of that limerick, who was the
George
best...
Orwell.
Eric Blair.
Was it Blair?
Edward Lear, as Victoria rightly said, who sort of popularised the form. But he had one fatal flaw in his limerick writing, which was, do you know?
Was the last line the same as the first?
The last line was more or less
Is it that boring old person of Chile?
Basically, it is, yeah. As you will see, it is that imprudent old person of Chile. I think you'll all agree that Alan's version is a lot better.
The firing pips out the willy is a lot funnier than...
Yes, that's exactly what I mean. On the other hand, less Victorian. He was sort of around the latter half of the 19th century.
That is an entirely pointless thing to write
It
down.
is, but it popularised the form. And there are other versions of his. They're all...
It's not painful and silly, is it, to be imprudent?
No.
Painful and silly to put the pips in your willy.
Oh, it certainly is. I think we're all with you, Alan.
Why has he not thought? He hasn't thought of
He
a
hasn't
painful and
thought
silly
it
thing
through.
to do that's related to apples and pears and being on the stairs. He just says he's imprudent, but there's nothing in that. There's nothing imprudent in the previous 4 lines. I mean, the thing is, apples and pears is rhyming slang for stairs.
Anyway, you're
Yeah,
right.
he's eating the stairs.
He's eating the stairs. He's sat on the stairs eating the apples and pears.
Firing splinters out of his willy.
Yeah, and also it's Chile.
Chile.
Which doesn't rhyme with silly.
Well, unless you say Chile.
Chile.
Which is how I pronounce it.
Well, anyway, but other versions you might be able to finish. There was an old man with a gong who bumped at it all day long. But they called out, "Oh, law, you're a horrid old bore."
Pull up your trousers, you're doing it wrong.
It sounds like that new Coldplay song.
Very good.
Which, if
Very-
you haven't heard it,
Yeah.
sounds like any Coldplay song.
Also, it's going to be you're a horrible old bore, you silly old man with the gong.
Basically, yeah.
This guy's shit.
You see his original...
These are like
So
Lil
they
Wayne
smashed that
lyrics.
old man with a gong.
They smashed him with the gong?
Yeah.
Why did they do that?
Because he was a horrid old bore.
Well, just take the gong away.
Yeah.
Once you got the gong from the old man, the problem's solved. No one will annoy you with the gong anymore. There's no point then to smash him with the gong is a greater crime than to hit the gong, regardless of whether he does it all day or not. Also, move away, go out of earshot when you can't hear the gong. No excuse
Your
for stalking.
outrage is commendable. Well, let's try another one. There was a young lady of Poole whose soup was excessively cool, so she put it to boil by the aid of some oil.
It was a recipe from Heston Blumenthal.
Very good. I like it.
Ran off with a man called Raoul. Because in Spain, they dig that shit.
That's true, they do with oil.
Once they got the soup up to boiling point, they poured it over her.
Because you know how violent they are in the world of Edward Lear now. You've got it. So let's actually see what the answer was.
Scalded.
The brilliant last line was that ingenious young lady of Poole.
It's not ingenious, because
No.
adding oil doesn't make something boil. I mean, I'm not a chef.
No.
But I think it's the application of heat, really. Yeah, cool. Needed.
Yeah.
Do you watch Gogglebox?
Oh, yes.
I never miss it.
Oh.
They were watching Heston Blumenthal, and there's a German guy who's a regular, and they said, what's that German name? And he said, yes. And they said, what's it mean? And he said, Flower Valley.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Anyway, the point is, Blumen is flower and Tal is valley, right? But he said Wally, and he really cannot say his V's. He just can't say his V's, and even his own wife thought he'd said Willy. And And then she was saying, Flower Willie, I thought you said Flower Willie, and really laughing, and he just wasn't laughing at all. He smile about it. No, I said Wally.
I said Wally.
It sounds like... Oh, never
My grandfather was like that. I used to drive along, he used to go, what a wonderful village. You can say wonderful and you can say village.
You can say vot, why can't you say village? What's wrong with them?
That was my point. And you go, oh, stop it. Whereas if I was talking to German to him, and if I were to say, wo ist der Postamt, where is the post office, he would say, what is the matter with you? What are you saying, whoa? It is wo ist der Postamt. I say, well, don't say, what is the matter with me then? He's still, I'm too old for this shit. Very, very good. So, there was a very popular comedian, who's sadly no longer with us, who's famous for his collection of vulgar postcards, McGill postcards, who also adored the Limerick form, and he annotated his edition of Edward Lear. Who do you think I'm thinking of? Do you know who collected?
Bob Monkhouse.
No, but that generation... It's Ronnie... Parker, yes. So a copy of Lear's nonsense verses was recently auctioned that had his annotations in, and he'd handwritten his own little opening verse. There was an old fossil named Lear, whose verses were boring and drear. His last lines were worse, just the same as the first, so I've tried to improve on them here. Good for him, isn't it? So, let's get some more points by saying, to forgive Edward Lear is to know him better. And what was his first and greatest achievement? It wasn't poetry, despite The Pobble Who Had No Toes and The Owl and the Pussycat, which are wonderful poems.
Was it the jet?
It's a nice thought. He wasn't a poet, primarily. He was something else.
A cook. A racing driver.
Well, you either know you don't. He was a painter. He was particularly an ornithologist. Funnily enough.
Bird painting.
Yes. Ornithological painter.
I think he got a lot better as he went from left to right.
It's still the same. Look, he started with a parrot and he's ended with a parrot.
Yes.
That's what held you back in the Limerick game, and it's holding you back in the painting game as well. Open your eyes!
Look at the owl. The owl's just heard one of the limericks.
Yeah. Well, David Attenborough described him as the greatest British ornithological painter there was. And he certainly was incredibly accurate, and in the time before photography,
well, I mean, he was
useful.
quite accurate. The second...
No, he did comic ones too.
The second from the left, and I think he started off doing a dolphin.
True. He had a cat called Foss, of whom he was so fond that when he was forced to move from the area he went to another area, he did something quite remarkable. Can you imagine what it is?
Stuffed it.
No. He certainly wouldn't want to see it dead. He loved it very much. He built a house in the second place that was identical to the house he'd come from, so the cat would feel at home.
The cat sat on the mat, it was fat. The cat.
There we are.
Not noticeably worse, is it?
I think putting in his bid there to be the next poet laureate, Alan Davies. So, Lear's...
Genuinely, though, it sounds like he was sort of a lunatic for symmetry.
Yes.
All he needed was to live in 3 slightly different houses in between the 2 identical ones.
And he would have an architectural limerick.
Realised his dream.
Yeah, it's true.
Also, I think he would have done that to make him at home.
To make himself at home, rather than the cat.
Yeah, and he's gone, oh, I've sort of done this for the cat, but secretly he's thinking, well, I know where the toilet is. Places last time.
It's true. You never know. What kind of logical reasoning did Sherlock Holmes use? L for logic there. Oh, lavatorial. That's not correct. Lavatorial reasoning. So take me through lavatorial reasoning.
Because when you go to the loo, it unclogs your body and your mind.
Oh, I see.
So, like, really, it does. Yeah, when I'm
Scatological
at home, if I'm stressed by something, like a dishwasher, I can't load the dishwasher properly, and it's not working, there's loads of bowls, and I can't get them in. I'm like, Jack, take a step back, go and drop the kids off at the pool and come back to it. Because it does. You sit on the loo, you think, right, what's the task going to be like? How am I going to attack this? Let's work out a game plan, a strategy. You deploy the troops, come back, and I'm slamming those plates in like Tetris.
You leave leave your children alone at a swimming pool.
That was a horrible metaphor.
Sorry. What, I thought you were young. I thought a bit young to have children you could just drop off at the pool. That means that means have a poo. I didn't know that meant have a poo. Drop it at the pool. Yeah. I like that. That's quite a good one.
The logic is good as well.
But we have no evidence that that's used. But we do know from the books the kind of logic he used. There are different sorts of logic.
Well, now, if you eliminate the impossible, you're left with the possible.
Yes, if everything...
Deduction.
No, not deduction.
Oh, you idiot!
Deduction is essentially reasoning something which is unchallengeable. It must be true. You're given a set of premises and the deduction is true. So if you say all humans are mortal, Alan Davis is human, we can say that. Therefore, Alan Davis is mortal. That's just simply an absolute fact. It must be true. If those two premises are true, then the synthesis must be true as well. But abductive reasoning would be saying something like, I saw Alan Davis in an Arsenal scarf. He always cries when Arsenal lose. I saw Alan crying. Therefore, Arsenal just lost. Now, that isn't certainly true, but it's the kind of logic that Sherlock Holmes used. Not absolutely certain and definite to be true, but he was nearly always right. He reasoned abductively. So that's the sort he used.
Oh.
There you are. What's his great phrase? What's the famous phrase he used?
Burn, ant, burn!
That's fantastic.
You know, this was painted by Edward Lear.
So, anyway, the famous phrase that he is associated with, of course...
My
dear, which of course he never said, which, as Victoria Wright says, he doesn't say. But I will give you points if you know where it first appeared in literature. It was in 1915 by a truly great writer who actually knew and played cricket with Conan Doyle and was a huge fan of his, and in some ways based his two most famous characters on the relationship between Holmes and Watson. One of them a bit of a blitherer, the other one incredibly intelligent.
Jeeves
and Wooster, yes.
P.G. Wodehouse.
So it was P.G. Wodehouse, but it was in fact in another series of his books, the Smith series, there he is, called Smith Journalist in 1915, set in New York.
Doesn't look like a humorist there, does he?
He was a charming, sweet man and just a real pro.
He was a prisoner of war, wasn't he? So
he would
look gloomy some of the time.
Indeed, when he was... Yes, he was taken to Upper Silesia, and as he pointed, he said, this is Upper Silesia. God knows what Lower Silesia must be. Anyway, he came up with the phrase, elementary idea wasn't. I mean, just as if it was a sort of phrase. Sherlock Holmes practiced abduction, not deduction. Now to the universal language of laughter. Who likes clowns?
UKIP supporters.
Hey.
Because they are kind of like clowns, UKIP politicians. They're kind of fun and comical and wear silly clothes, but they're also terrifying.
And they also have a lot of white faces.
Very good. Well, the certain answer is...
No, well, I'm just trying to work out who likes clowns and thinking, well, it's certainly not children or adults.
You're right. So basically, other clowns is probably the only answer we can come up with.
Or sort of other people that work in the circus.
Yes.
They're not going to be anybody's least favourite thing, as long as there are clowns on the bill.
That's true. And I like the cars that fall apart and some of the gags they do vaguely, but the actual makeup and the whole schmear, as it were, is pretty disturbing. And children, it's been shown, do not like them. There was a study in 2008 that showed that children were more frightened than in any way healed or smoothed or helped.
But all children are frightened. So that may mean that clowns don't know what laughter sounds like. They just think the screams of terrified children are laughter.
They did really well.
That's all I've ever heard.
They screamed wonderfully, yeah, I know.
P. Diddy is afraid of clowns.
Is he?
Yeah.
There is a so-called word for it, do you know it?
Caloraphobic.
Yes, you're right. Though, unfortunately, and I don't mean this as a personal slight, it's not in the OED, and if you look it up in the online etymology dictionary, it says, it looks suspiciously like the sort of thing that idle pseudo-intellectuals invent on the internet and which every smarty-pants takes up thereafter. It supposedly comes from colon is limb, from a stilt walker, possibly. And the Greek for clown is clun, which comes from English. So, if anything, it should just be clunophobia, or just...
No, that's the fear of Martin Clunes. Which is an actual real thing. I'm terrified of it.
Because of those ears, those flappy ears. I remember when he was starting out, I can't remember what we were doing, we were in the same place, and he picked up a magazine, said, oh, God, I think there's an interview with me in this. And the first line of the interview is, you know, 6 foot tall, with a tweed jacket, Stephen Fry, ... or, you know, twinkly, with a pert little body, Jack Whitehall. And the one on Martin Clunes just started, face like a torn arse. It was so unfair. He's got this round, sweet, beautiful face. And actually, women fall from him. Torn arse, I know.
I'm trying to visualise a torn arse.
Not good.
Well, I can help with that as well.
No. Since around 2500 BC, clowns have been known and written about, but the first famous one in Britain, do you know who it might have been in the 18th century, born in 1778, really the 19th century?
I know, actually.
Yes, go on.
Joseph Grimaldi.
Grimaldi is the right answer, Joseph Grimaldi. Well. They say that 1 in 8 Londoners saw him perform.
There's a Grimaldi Park in Islington, not far from where... What's his chops lived? Who's that? Eric Blair.
Oh, yes, Orwell, yeah. There's a famous story of someone going to see a doctor who was, I mean, before the days of psychology, but it was a doctor who specialised in the mind, and this person said, I'm miserable, every day is horrible, I don't know what to do with myself, I can't get up in the morning, and the doctor said, well, I suggest going to see Grimaldi, he'll cheer you up. And the guy said, I am Grimaldi. He was a very miserable man, so.
No wonder he was so depressed. It would have taken him about 45 minutes to get his coat on.
That's true. Also, his wife died in childbirth. His father was a bit of a loon. His son drank himself to death. I mean, it's all lots of misery. I am grim all day, he said of himself, Grimaldi, but I make you laugh at night. So, good, excellent. And now, in honour of Victoria, QI does only connect. Cue music. Greatest programme on television after QI.
Hello.
Yes. Does that ring any bells with you? So could you choose, please, an Egyptian hieroglyph?
Oh, my goodness, I've never had the chance to do this before.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
the Eye of Horus.
Eye of Horus it is. You have to find the connection between these 5 things. First, John F. Kennedy profiles in courage. Lots of points, of course, if you get it from 1. All right? Anybody else is allowed to buzz, of course, if they think they know. And the second one? Schumann theme and variations in E-flat. Whoa. What's this patronising
You
Jack?
can all piss off.
What's it got to do with the Eye of Horus?
You know, that's you choose... Have you never watched? You've never watched Only Connect?
Not a whole one, no.
Not that one. All you have to do is find what's in common, but Only Connect, literally.
Well, I think the F stands for his middle name. I'm just taking notes, and then I will abduct once I've got them.
I don't know about Schumann, but if I was on a team on Only Connect, I'd ask them, is it like the second thing they wrote?
Oh, that's very good.
Stephen, in my head, is Schumann a composer?
Yes. Thank you. Robert Schumann.
Robert Schumann.
So let's have the third one, because I don't think you get it from 2. John Prescott, Prezza.
Goodness me.
Schumann's nickname is Theme and Variation.
Was that one of the Sugar Babes lineups?
So I think we better have a look at the 4th one. Fewer points, but this might help. Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps. The last one will give it to you. So the last one is only for 1 point.
OK, hold on now. Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps put together by 2 people that only have letters as surnames?
You can see why I never got to the end of it.
No, you see the last one, and I think... All right, struggle for the buzzer.
They were like ghostwriters!
Yes!
Yes!
Yes! Come on. Well done. Well done, John. Steady. You've made a happy man feel very old.
I have to go for a really awkward dinner with my dad now. What's your QI?
Well, yeah, just too brilliant. And, of course, we waited till the most intellectual one, Katie Price's Crystal, and you got it, Jack. So,
it is a great read. And your audiobook of it was fantastic.
Well, thank you very much.
Me and Dane went on holiday to
a ghostwriter.
No, that's what's so interesting, in a way, is that the Schumann and the Alcoholics Anonymous are ghostwritten in a very special and different way, at least according to their authors. Bill Wilson was one of the founders of AA.
And Bob W?
That's right. But Bill Wilson claimed that he was spoken to by a spirit, a ghost, who told him what the 12 steps were.
Oh, well, you could say the same about all of Yeats's poetry.
Well, indeed, you could. And Schumann claimed that the spirits of Schubert and Mendelssohn gave him the idea for his theme and variations in E-flat. So this piece is actually also known as the Ghost Variations. But John Prescott's autobiography was written by Hunter Davis, who also gave us the Gaza and Wayne Rooney book. Katie Bryce's second novel, Crystal, outsold all 7 Booker Prize nominees that year.
She wasn't nominated for the Booker Prize.
It wasn't actually nominated itself, though.
Scandalous.
I know. She talks through the stories with her ghostwriter, who then writes them out. Or, as one of Price's managers put it, Katie says what she wants the story to be like, and they just put it into book words.
She's been stuck in that pose for so long that a group of spiders have colonised her head.
And which else? That's, oh yes, Ted Sorensen was JFK's speechwriter, who came up with perhaps his most famous phrase that he used in his inauguration.
Ask not what you can do for your... No. Ask not what your country can do for you.
But what?
Kebab.
But what you can do for your country. Known as a chiasmus, exactly. And a fine example of one. And that was written by Sorensen. And Ronald Reagan said of his autobiography, do you know what he said?
He looked forward to reading it?
Yes, I hear it's a terrific book. I look forward to reading it. Absolutely right. Very, very good. Anyway, that's all from Only Connect. Right. Now, this here, you're about to see, is the longest word in literature. What do you think it means?
Is it the Greek for that place in North Wales?
It's the Greek for that peculiar feeling when you're trapped in a labyrinth with a man with a bull's head trying to...
That minatory feeling. Minatory is an English word, of course, which means threatening, so that would be rather appropriate. Now, this is a word... Who's the best-known comic Greek playwright?
Aristophanes?
Aristophanes, their first in was Alan. And this is basically lunch in ancient Greek. It actually means a dish of sliced fish, shark and remnants of dogfish head, forming a pungent, sharp-tasting mixture, laserwort, a crab with drizzled honey and thrush, and a blackbird on top, a wood pigeon, a normal pigeon, a little baked chicken head, a dab chick, another pigeon, a hare with boiled-down wine, and crunchy wings for dipping.
I'll just have the soup.
What, no feta?
And not a bottle of Retsina either.
Feta, me.
That's why they went bankrupt in Greece, because it took them so long to write out the menus. They did no business.
Talking of lunch, what do we know about the word lunch? A good L word, lunch.
Luncheon?
Oh,
Yeah,
now,
yes,
you see,
luncheon is how it
interestingly-
started, yes.
Well, as a matter of fact, it isn't.
Yes.
It was lunch first, and people extended it to luncheon because they thought it sounded smarter.
Quite right.
It is. I've made a whole programme about this. Honestly,
It derives from an Anglo-Saxon word,
it does derive from
from
an
nuncheon.
This is like watching two great stags knocking antlers together.
It doesn't. Where do you think the phrase ploughman's lunch comes from?
From ploughmans having their lunch.
No, it was invented by the Milk Marketing Board. And in
that's true.
investigating
In
the
pubs and
history
pubs
of
and
that,
things. Yeah.
we discovered that that's very disputed whether lunch comes from nuncheon.
Well, until about the 18th century, the word nuncheon is used. You'll have a like nuncheon. And nuncheon has a very clear derivation. It comes from noon, as in midday, schench, which means drink. It was literally a liquid lunch, nuncheon. And it was changed, no one's quite sure why it changed to luncheon, but it did change to luncheon, and then the luncheon got dropped to lunch.
3015 fry.
It's very convincing. I wish you'd been on the programme. The theory put forward was that they had been rolled together in people's minds and lunch came from somewhere else and it was made longer to sound smarter and it was... So then people thought it was the same as the word luncheon, but not.
I don't know of any people using the word lunch before the word luncheon. That's
breakfast, isn't it?
Anyway, what we've got here is a picnic.
Yeah. Well, let's move to less disputed areas, because I'm...
Or an arm wrestle.
We'll do a Harry Hill moment. Well, there you go. And so, to the epilogue that we call general ignorance. Time for fingers on buzzers, please. What comes before a fall?
Pride. Victoria, I have to you. A programme about this, please.
I don't know. Is this going to be... is this going to be something to do with Greek drama and...
No, no, no. It's the book of Proverbs in the King James Bible. It says, pride goeth before destruction, and haughty spirit before a fall. And there you are. The things that are misquoted are rather fun. There's a 2009 survey that found that the most common misquote is mispronouncing the phrase damp squib as damp squid. Oh, yeah, it was a bit of a damp squid.
What kind of idiot would say that?
What?
I've definitely said that.
It would mean something completely different, because you want a squid to be damp.
Well, yeah, it would be horrible to have a dry
squid. Would be the very best sort of squid.
Oh, a deep-fried squid is lovely, isn't it?
Calamari.
You can say that as a compliment, then. We should bring that as a compliment. If you get served that ridiculous Greek dish and it's a tasty version of it, what a damp squid!
Yeah, exactly. Other things include on tender hooks instead of tenterhooks. Nipping something in the butt, which is quite a mute point instead of a moot point.
Well, it's a catch-24, isn't it?
Yeah. They're called eggcorns, as in from a mangling of acorns. There's, in lame man's terms, is used apparently, cut to the cheese. It is, isn't it? To all intensive purposes. The feeble position instead of the fetal position. Which is very
I've definitely had the feeble position.
Soaping wet, which is a sort of mix between sopping wet and soaking wet, I think. Soaping wet. I was soaping wet.
That sounds filthy.
Giving up the goat.
I think that's a Welsh one. I think.
I'm so glad you put your hand up to that one. I wasn't really going to mention it. Getting your nipples in a twist.
Oh, Kath and Kim, they have a lot of these. They're always saying things wrong.
Yeah.
When she's hungry, she goes, I'm absolutely ravishing him.
Chickens coming home to roast, I rather like. I think they pluck themselves as they come and just land gently on your plate. Anyway, there we are. A haughty spirit comes before a fall. How would you describe a siren's tale?
It's like a fish, like a mermaid.
Oh, dear.
Is no one else going to play?
I'm afraid not. Although, you're right, they were on the rocks when they sang.
The song was so alluring.
Yeah.
Ships were dashed on the rocks. It's unclear why they wanted that to happen.
Yeah, no, they were just wicked for some
I
reason.
think they were annoyed by their lack of nipples.
That was... That's probably what
Where
it was.
are my nipples? I don't know. Lost my nipples.
So who managed to survive hearing the siren song? You remember?
Odysseus.
Also known as Ulysses, yeah. As in the Odyssey, yeah. So keen to hear the song. What did he do so that he could hear it?
Taped it.
Well, no, he taped himself, or had his men...
Downloaded it off iTunes.
He had his
Along with the Harry Potter
He had his men
audiobook.
tape him to the foremast of his ship, and he made them plug their own ears with wax so they couldn't hear the siren song, because it's such an extraordinary draw, and had himself tied with his ears open, and said, no matter how much I shout and scream at you, and you can see my face saying, let me go.
They do that at Simply Red gigs. All the audience.
You have to ignore me. So they couldn't hear it, so they carried on rowing, and he was dying, because he so wanted to go where this incredible sound was coming from, that he was the only one who ever heard the siren song and survived, supposedly. Rather charming story. Not very true, probably, but it's still charming. That actually they were half...
Fish.
No, we said that. They were half bird.
Bird?
Yes.
Ooh, sexy.
They were half...
Here's a whole new meaning to it. Are you a leg or a breast man?
Why do I think they were half fish?
I know most people do. That's really why we asked the question, I'm afraid, to trap, you know, the common view of them, because
when did mermaids get muddled up with sirens?
Interesting point. I think it's because they were on the rocks by the coast, so one assumed that they had something to do with the water, but they were on land, and they drew people into their rock. Anyway, what kind of poisoning could you get from one of these? Here, one of these. Here we go, I'll give you...
Lead poisoning.
Whoa! Lead poisoning, you saying? Is he right?
He said that. He said that. Someone said that.
Are you right?
Lead. There's no lead in them.
Lead poisoning.
Graphite? Graphite poisoning.
Graphite poisoning.
Well, you see...
Stab wound.
What we're doing is we're correcting ourselves, because all the way back to the A series, we said, and I quote, we said there was no chance on God's or any other earth that we know of getting lead poisoning from a pencil. And that is still true today, but the pencils I've given you are pre-1970s pencils, and the paint in them contains lead.
So when I put it in my mouth just then...
Yeah. You have to clean...
I just did it again!
You are an idiot. You would have to clean a pencil of all paint 5 times a week, and then eventually, and it has happened twice, you would have lead toxicity. Some people really do suck the ends of pencils, but you would really, really have to do it a long, long, long time. Lead became illegal in all household products by 1978. Anyway, now we've reached the end, and it's time to see the scores. Well, in first place, with a resoundingly clear +9 points, it's Victoria Corin Mitchell! In second place, with a very impressive -2.5, it's the audience! In third place, terrific debut, -10, Lloyd Langford! He can hold his head up with pride. -16, Jack Whitehall. And limping in the rear, I'm afraid, it's Alan Davis with -39! That's all from Victoria, Jack Lloyd, Alan and me, and I leave you with the last words of French grammarian Dominique Bourg. I am about to, or I am going to, die. Either expression is used. Thank you and good night.